So we made it. So once again, good morning, dear colleagues. I'm pleased to have a chance sharing with you some information about the material that is currently being finalized. And this is the digital handbook, as Karl-Heinz already mentioned. And this is the output or result of the of the fourth segment of the project, the intellectual output number 4. As in all other cases, this is not something that has been prepared by Brno team or Masaryk University team, although I would like to introduce first my colleagues from this team. This is my colleague from the university, Bohumira or Mirka Lazarova, and also our dear colleague from the basic school Chalabalova in Brno, Vladimir Moshkvan, who was very intensively cooperating with us. And since we have got a lot of feedback from our project partners, this is to be seen as a kind of mutual or joint venture of a certain kind, and I'm very grateful for this feedback we are getting. Objectives of the guidelines and suggestions, as we call it, as we call this digital handbook, are several. First, we want to offer different possibilities for consideration of those interested about how to implement the idea of university schools. We also want to offer the material that we believe has the potential to serve as an inspiration or perhaps specific for implementation of university schools, to set the collaboration and develop it between universities and schools where students are conducting their internships. We believe the handbook could be of interest for people from universities, schools, teachers, school leaders, and many other stakeholders for whom the issue of teacher education in different aspects is relevant. The handbook is structured into 3 main blocks. First, we focus on organization of internships, and we specifically pay attention to the ways how to support collaboration of those involved in organizing internships from different sides. Then we focus on activities of the internship or internships, and then we deal with the issue of what is required in relation to school-based teacher educators, which competencies they should have in order to succeed in this delicate task of introducing student teachers into school, its work, its life, its broad context of education efforts. Of course, the intellectual output 4 should not be viewed as a kind of isolated element. We base what is in not only but vastly on intellectual output 1, is analyzed experience from project countries, partner countries, but also we use what we have generated within intellectual output 2, as our colleagues were already talking about, examples of good practice. And as well, we are relying on a rich content of intellectual output 3, which is very much about not only but about proposals of an educational module. So you can find there short theoretical inputs, references to examples of the practice, some videos and other practical material. We tried to make it interactive within the limits of possible. Of course, as already been discussed, the no science fits all. So the whole thing is highly contextualized, and contexts of student internships are really greatly diverse. This is what needs to be taken into account in order to prevent the harms, I would say, even. We also need to be aware that different countries and different education systems, different schools, and different terms and terminology are in place, and it needs to be really considered sensitively in order to use what is known in our own context or in a specific context as good as possible. And yes, no guidelines can reflect all specific needs for a specific practice. So it requires creativity and adaptation to local conditions. The first block, as I mentioned already, is focused on organizational student-teachers internship, and main themes that you can find there, or you will be able to find there, since the handbook is going to be ready in August. It's the very selection of university schools. Carl was mentioning these different levels of school involvement and intensity of involvement into students' internship issues. Criteria like relevance, motivation, willingness to invest, and more are what is emphasized in this part of the handbook. Then we deal with partnership, collaboration, and agreements, these organizational technical parts of the developing the internships. And we also stress the main principles of collaboration within this context that relates to aims, voluntarity, parity of those involved, shared resources, etc. We point out the fact that different cultures are involved, different organizational cultures are involved. It needs to be taken into account and respected in order to find the modus operandi for those involved, since everybody should benefit from the whole initiative. It's a big challenge for learning and improvement. It's kind of getting cultures in a synergic way. And of course, there is also a word about formal and informal agreements that are part of the whole business and needs to be recognized as well. And then we talk about, or we deal with resources, human resources, finances, literature and training, time needed for organizing and realizing the internship, space, including the third space issue, as Kari pointed out, online support, and more. In the part that is devoted to activities of internship in the handbook, you will be able to find information about the process of enrolling students for the practice and the socialization in schools, which is very important. About observations in and beyond the classroom, since not only the classroom activities should be in focus. About some forms that prove to be productive, like tandem teaching. About lesson preparations and individual teaching. about reflection issues with those who are school-based and look after the students at the internships. And also, we touch the issue of students as researchers. They very often link the internship with research kind of activities. And then they should be also open, given the door open, or provided the door open for these activities as well. And evaluation and documentation by student and mentors, including student portfolio as an instrument for very many different and important processes, diaries, online systems, also part of the section focused on activities of internship. The last part then is focused on requirements on school-based teacher educators. And so we tackle the issue of selection of those people. Who is a good mentor? Who is a good teacher? How to help those people to fulfill the expectations related to their roles, specific roles within the context of internships. We deal with competencies of those people, practical, theoretical, and others. We also deal with the training for those people in order to be realistic in the expectations and in provision of conditions to meet the expectations. And also we deal with supervision and further support for school-based teacher educators in this third section. So to conclude, let me point out that students, teachers, internships remain key issue to be a key issue of pre-service teacher education. They really need continuous and well-organized collaboration between the institutions involved. University schools should not be anymore understood as just places where we can locate or place our students for some kind of internship. They should be really understood as real partners of universities. And this goes together with some activities like research-driven activities, innovation support activities, school development activities. And yes, we are aware of the diversity of contexts, as I said already, and therefore guidelines and suggestions, as well as examples of the practice and their limits, as I already said earlier. We still believe the handbook can serve as a good tool for those who are interested in the teacher education and could be possibly helpful in some of the efforts. So this is a brief information about the result of fourth element of the project activities. And as I said already, the final version of the handbook will be available at the web page of the project in August. So you are most welcome to come to these web pages and make use of it. Thank you very much.